If you're looking for a behind-the-scenes insight into music, you've come to the right place. Remember to subscribe to be notified of new content.
Many have said that music has healing properties. Well, in 2020, we have faced a 1 in 100 year event with the COVID-19 pandemic, and music is one element that has helped carry us through. But this pandemic has changed our life in so many ways, especially so for Australian singer-songwriters who were once accustomed to performing their music in a live setting. Join me as I unearth what goes on behind the scenes during these COVID times across the Australian music scene.
This is Behind the Music with Ellie D.
The Fan Files. Hi, I'm Ellie D. Thank you so much for your support through season 1 of Behind the Music, the podcast, and the YouTube series. Today I'm launching the Fan Files. It is a collection of people around Australia who are willing to share their experiences as listeners, so their listening habits. And the questions have come from some of the artists that featured in season 1. If you'd like to be a part of the Fan Files for future seasons, all you need to do is drop me an email. I'll put it in the description below. But sit back and enjoy, and maybe some of these questions will get you thinking as well about how you listen to music.
Hi, I'm Corey.
I'm Derek.
I'm Jess.
Hello, I'm Johnny.
I'm Michael Dart.
Hey, my name's Simon Banks.
It's Tracy here.
My name is Jono.
I guess I was old before my time. I love classic hits from the 60s, 70s and 80s. I know it's a cliche, but I really do. Ever since I was a kid, that's been my favourite type of music because I think it stands the test of time.
Well, whatever they call dance these days. I mean, there was disco, and then there was, what was there? Techno and happy hardcore and dubstep and just dance music. I don't know what they even call it these days. Electro something, whatever.
Hardcore, heavy metal, old school rock, a little bit of pop punk. But basically anything that's got musicians playing their instruments well.
For me, growing up in the 80s, it was all Madonna, the Bangles, Cyndi Lauper, Michael Jackson. So I guess I was a pop tragic back then. In terms of live acts, I really count some of my favourites being the Audreys and Ben Harper, Tony Childs, Kate Miller-Headkey, Alanis Morissette and Bjork.
Like most people, I like all music. But look, over the last 20 or so years, I've really been drawn to funk and soul, and sort of stuck on one side of that sort of blends into hip hop, and then the other side of that sort of blends into that sort of funky sort of soul house type music. So somewhere in the middle, that's what I seem to be drawn to the most.
I grew up in the countdown era and the pub rock era of the 80s, so I love all that sort of music. I love 80s music, 70s music, Aussie rock music. I also love swing music. I love 60s British pop music, good old Akadaka, Screaming Jets. You know, I even like some classical.
My favourite genre of music is pop music. I love to bop to pop. So pop music from all eras, from the 50s right until now.
Okay, so it was literally so long ago I can't remember which particular album, but it was Kylie. I'm pretty sure it had a gold look to the cover, but I've just been looking up online. I can't find the cover, and I don't remember where I put the album either.
First album I bought was Abbey Road for 40 cents off a friend of mine in primary school. It was about 1971, 72. I was 11 or 12. Because I think it was the only Beatles album my parents didn't have at the time. When I was a teenager, there was glam, then there was new wave, then there was disco. There was basically everything was new and original at the time that I was the right age for it to be there. So certainly the Beatles' first album purchase was an influence. But then so was absolutely everything else that was going on around me at the time. It was just a highly influential period for music.
The Offspring's Smash on cassette tape. show my age here. And I still listen to that album today. My parents were supremely unimpressed.
Bon Jovi, I was influenced by some older sisters. Or Hanson's Bop. I was probably when I first bought music was 14, 15. It was an album that had just come out. It definitely has still influenced my musical journey in the fact that it was quirky, it was a little bit kitsched. But I'd say also because it actually had some really good lyrics for a couple of young guys who were starting out.
Some would say, unsurprisingly, that I'm Breathless by Madonna was the first album that I ever bought. It, of course, was the pseudo Dick Tracy soundtrack at the time and spawned the #1 hit Vogue, huge in 1990. I was 14 years old at the time. And I remember her saying that her great drive in life was from this fear of being mediocre. And that was really relatable to me.
1986 out now, and I was chuffed, which means excited, that I had saved up enough cash to be able to go and buy this album. And at the time I grew up in a Christian family, so most of the music we were listening to had a strong sort of Christian theme, or we had lots of ABBA albums or Village People listening to my brother's older music. But I went and bought this 1986 out now, and it opened me up to all this synth pop and this British new wave music that was coming, like Arcadia and the Thompson Twins. And for me, it really expanded my mind into this European style of music. And maybe because I was a young boy growing up in Hobart, I wasn't so exposed or listening to commercial radio. But that really got me thinking, well, there's a lot more of this type of music, especially that synth pop. And I'm not sure what influences had, but it certainly expanded my mind as a very young boy in 1986.
I do remember buying the Knack album, and I do remember buying, oh my god, this is so embarrassing, the album for the song Baby It's You by Promises in 1979. But I don't think they were the first ones I ever bought. It was probably a compilation album.
It's a toss-up between three, if I can say three. Tapao, China in Your Hand, and I think that was on cassette. Jason Donovan and his record, his album on LP. And I think Europe, The Final Countdown, which has become one of my anthems. So yes, we're throwing it back to the 80s there, but that's when I was born. And how did that influence me? I mean, they're quite different. You've got some Euro rock, you've got some cheesy Australian pop, who went sort of round the world with that, Jason Donovan, and Tapao, China in Your Hand, just a classic song. So I just love classics. You know, I love 80s music, but I love all music. So influenced me in that pop way, I guess, but I don't really just love pop. I love any kind of music. I think music really is something that uplifts people and puts you in a mood, or it can take you out of a mood. So any genre really, I just love music. Hence why I do what I love doing best, which is bring new music to people on Instagram.
I'm sorry to say that the lyrics are probably not the first thing that catches my attention. Quite possibly not even the second. It's more of the music, the sound of the track that gets me in. And I may not understand why I like it, why it causes a reaction in me. It's only when I go back and maybe search for the lyrics online.
Usually it's just the music. You know, you might hear the voice, particularly if the voice is an interesting voice. There seems to be a thing about interesting voices lately, particularly on women. Women have to have an interesting voice to have a hit. Lyrics, yeah, last of all.
Is always going to be the music, followed by the singer or vocalist, followed finally by the actual lyrics. Reason behind that would have to be, if you've got music played well, you've got the hook, you've got the talent, you're going to get my attention and keep it for long enough for me to listen to the vocalist.
I've actually come to appreciate the actual voice of a singer more these days. But it is the initial music that captures my attention.
Well, it's always the music first. So whether it's a great guitar slash entry, strings or keys, something with tempo or something haunting, it has to grab my attention first. And then it's the voice. Is that going to keep me going? But at the end of the day, it's all about the lyrics. The music might get you interested, the voice might keep you entertained, but at the end of the day, if I'm going to go back and listen to your music, it's really all about the story, it's all about the lyrics. It's poetry, it's the story. I need to be coming back for more.
The music, there's a beat that seems to kick in and turns my brain on in a certain way, and I think, oh, I want to listen to more of that. And I facilitate a huge amount of workshops and always speaking, so I love to have something on in the background when people are doing what they need to do that sort of makes them want to tap their feet and sort of bounce around a little bit as well. But it always has to be something which is never heard on radio and something that people won't easily recognise. So I'm always listening for that music first and that beat which comes in the background, and then it would be the voice followed by the lyrics. And an example of a band I listened to loads because of just the voice, there was a UK band called The Darkness, around about sort of 15 years ago they were out, had this high falsetto voice, and I listened to them purely because of his voice.
Once a song has grabbed my attention, I must admit I will tend to hunt out the lyrics because I do like singing along with a song, especially if I like it. So yeah, I will hunt out the lyrics to make sure that I've got the right words. I mentioned before about the Japanese group Arashi. Well then yeah, trying to sing in Japanese. Interesting times.
The words aren't necessarily the most important thing, but do help, especially when I'm in a certain mood. But for me, first of all, it would be the voice. Most artists these days in the popular charts, though, start to sound the same. So what I look for is something unique, something that stands out, a sound that might take me back to another genre, maybe or a time like the 80s or 90s, something that just creates that classic pop. They've got a dance beat, typically you can hear Christina Aguilera, you know it's a Christina Aguilera song, or you know it's a Dua Lipa song, you know it's a Sam Smith song or an Adele song. You can just hear. I don't like those songs that all sound the same. So what I look for is the voice, the lyrics, music, in that kind of order.
No, I must admit that I don't consciously listen to the lyrics, at least not in the beginning.
No, I focus more on music, unless it's the sort of song that you need to sort of sing along to, in which case you might bother to learn what some of the lyrics are, particularly for the chorus. Unless it's trying to be poetic. No, I don't really think lyrics matter particularly. It does if it's hip hop or something, and then basically all they're doing is talking or shouting at you anyway. But otherwise, if it's actual, music, then no, the lyrics aren't necessarily that important.
Lyrics are important, music first, more so than the lyrics. But a song that is just a hook, a beat, and has no substance is going to be less interesting to me than something that's not only done well, but has something to say.
Look, if I'm focused, lyrics are actually more important as they have the message of the song, and especially for independent artists, I find that that's what they're trying to express for themselves.
Well, the lyrics to a song are everything. Music and vocals will get you so far, but the story is key. It's about being the artist. It's about telling your story. And I think that's why later on in life, alternative music, indie folk music, blues music has really appealed to me, because it's songs that are haunting, that talk about love and loss, and then there's upbeat songs as well, but it's that really heartfelt story that really appeals to me. So, I think that's why Taylor Swift will get a lot of new fans through her latest music, because it really is all about the storytelling, taking people on a journey, sharing your love, sharing your life, sharing your pain, sharing your success. So it really is all about the lyrics for me.
It's a little bit of both. However, when the song's maybe a little bit slower, you can tune into those lyrics a little bit more. Like at the moment, I'm really into a UK artist called Yeba, and because she's got such a soulful voice, you seem to get that chance to tune into the lyrics a little bit more. And when I listen to hers, I'm almost crying at every song. I like them so much. And then you combine that journey and the story behind the song, and then I often will research what the person's singing about as well, so I've got a bit more of an understanding and meaning. So the words mean a lot, but some songs you might just ignore them as well and just tap your foot.
I like to listen to the lyrics of a song. It actually helps create that mood. So if I'm feeling a little bit down and in the dumps, a song that might talk about how I'm feeling or relate to how I'm feeling, or I might relate to how they're feeling or they're singing in their song, that really sets the mood for me. Then if I'm in a happy, jolly mood, then, music of any genre, but pop or whatever, it's talking about moving on and all that kind of stuff, whatever. I think it's the lyrics really that I listen to, and sometimes a great lyric does it all for me.
I don't exactly go out of my way to find brand new artists. I mostly stick to the ones that I know.
No, I've kind of officially stopped trying to seek out new music. I gave up a few years ago. I sort of officially reached that age where I can go, I don't know, the music that young people listen to these days is not even proper music. It doesn't have a decent beat to it. No words. There's too many words. I've given up. I just listen to iTunes on random pretty much.
I really enjoy discovering new artists. I really enjoy discovering new talented people who play their instruments well within the genres that I enjoy.
Generally say I stick to what I know. And I listen to mainstream music. I don't really go and chase any new music these days.
Well, I always like listening to my favourites, but when it comes to new artists, I really listen to what family and friends and colleagues say. Who's new to them? Who have they been listening to? And it's been great to see with the changes in the digital landscape that Australian artists are starting to get a little bit of a bigger slice of the pie when it comes to digital content, particularly through films, but streaming services such as Netflix. So I really love watching a new series and then quickly Googling to try and find out who the new artist is that I've heard there. And there's been a lot of that going on for me over the last 12 months, which says great things for the music scene. So that's great to see. Then locally, I always like to support up and coming new artists, whatever way I can, whether it's buying their music, supporting them on social media platforms, getting to know them better, seeing if there's an opportunity to co-create something as well. So there's a whole heap of ways to expose yourself to new artists, and there are a few of the ways that I do that.
I'm constantly going out of my way to find new artists, and it consumes a huge part of my day because I listen to so much music. And look, nothing annoys me more who people get stuck in their childhood or their teens, want to revisit that music from 10, 15, 20 years ago constantly. Absolutely, it's great to listen to those old classics and those old favourites, but don't spend your life bogged down in your past, because the world's full of creativity. New things are being created every day, and you're doing yourself a massive disservice if you don't open your mind up and expose yourself to the new and brilliant music which is being produced every day. And I constantly have this discussion with my brother, who was or is a professional musician, but he just loves listening to stuff from when he was in high school, and it sort of berates me that he doesn't go out and expand his mind a little bit more.
I never used to go out of my way to look for new artists. I kind of relied on something that I felt comfortable with, someone that I followed already. But since working alongside Ellie and doing my own show, I've discovered some really cool unsigned Australian singer-songwriters and songwriters all around the world. So now I go out of my way to search different hashtags and have a look at what's coming up on social media, YouTube, and there's some great tools out there to be able to search for music. And I really like supporting those guys because they've got a really, it's a really hard job. So I just, I like to search now by doing that.
I think I probably do choose songs based on my mood. Is that normal?
I actually choose music for the mood I want to feel. I hadn't really thought about it until this question, but yes, basically if I want to be innovated, then I will choose the appropriate music. If I want to be relaxed, I will choose the appropriate music.
This is actually a really hard question to answer because it is so subjective. I don't always do the same thing. My criteria for choosing the playlist that I play on any given day is subject to many different factors. How I'm feeling, what sort of a day I've had, why I'm listening to music. Do I need to do housework? Am I on the exercise bike? Have I had the day from hell at work? So I apologize. Not really a clear-cut answer, but it depends. For me, I have a few playlists that are already queued and ready to go, dependent upon how I am feeling. And I do add to those playlists on a regular basis when I find new artists or new songs that I want to add.
To be honest, I'll go with the mood that I'm feeling. If I put on music that doesn't match the mood that I'm feeling, it feels wrong and I generally have to change it. I can sometimes use music to change my mood, but it's got to be what I'm feeling rather than trying to change it.
I always choose music to suit my mood or influence my mood. Listening to haunting songs of unrequited love, if I'm feeling particularly blue, is a big mistake. But if it's a party with some friends and you're really looking for a high, then it's going to be pop music all the way. So I guess I truly do choose music based on my mood or the mood that I want to be in. And I think that's what it's all about, hey? Artists that are relatable to you at a point in time that really make you feel something.
I'm constantly changing the music I listen to based on the mood I want to feel and also the mood I'm in. Now, I have my own home office, which I'm recording this from, but throughout the day I'm constantly changing the music to match that mood and energy I need as well. Like I have my after lunch music, I have my music where I require deep concentration and my mind's just getting a little bit out of control. I'll go into some really slow music. Friday afternoon I'll always pump up some house just to get me through the end of the day. And when I wrote my book, you spend hours and hours, months, years of writing away. So I really went on this journey of finding that right song to help, or the correct song to help me write. And I went very much into that British sort of pop of around the mid-2000s, like Travis, Doves, David Gray, even though we didn't really like his music per se, but just some of that slow melodic music which open up your mind and sort of helped you to get in that flow of thinking a little bit differently and writing.
Oh no, I definitely listen to music based on moods and feelings. Yeah, if I'm feeling a bit sad, it will be probably a little bit more emotional music. Songs that bring memories back. If I want to do housework, it tends to be maybe the good old Aussie rock or 80s music. And if I'm in the garden, I have been known to pump out a bit of AC/DC, so or In Excess. Yeah, they're good gardening. They're good gardening music.
Well, I like to choose music based on the mood I'm feeling. So I've just recently completed a very long drive across Australia. I needed some music that was just pumping, energy, cheesy pop, some throwbacks that I can listen to, like ABBA in there, then Steps or whatever. So I just need something really upbeat, something just where my mind will just melt away and disappear. So I really do pick based on emotions. Yet, like I said, if I'm feeling a little bit cheesed off, then I will, you know, get it in the bath or in the shower, put some music on, some candles, and just have time to reflect on why I'm feeling that way. So look, definitely emotion. I pick a song based on that.
Funny that. No, I tend to cherry pick. In fact, a very memorable one was a friend pointed out to me, it's like, you bought every single of Roxette from their first album. Why didn't you just buy the album? To be honest, it never occurred to me at the time.
Steve, I reckon it's been years since I listened to an entire album. Seriously, years. Everything's just on random these days. Yeah, albums dead.
New releases from favourite artists, I absolutely will listen to it the whole way through. Before I then cherry pick and add my favourite songs to my favourite playlists. I have a tendency to listen to new music if it is dropped in album form in its entirety before I sit down and go, oh yeah, I really like track 4, or I really like track 6, or it was awful the whole way through.
Look, usually I don't make time for whole projects just because I love music, but it's not a component that I would chase all the time. But if I'm listening to a CD while I'm driving or focused on housework or something like that, I'll let the whole CD play unless there's a song I really don't like. But I just think it's important because the artist has put all their effort, their time, their thoughts, everything into it, and each song has its merit.
I'm a serial skipper. I flick through a few tracks until I hit something that I'm really keen to listen to that complements my mood. So I'm terrible at just listening through one song if I'm just listening to my Spotify, or if I've got a record or CD. Do you remember that, kids? So yeah, I'm a serial flicker until I find something that suits my mood. Not a good finisher, more of a flicker.
One of the great things about Spotify is that you're open to so much new music you mightn't have normally listened to. For me, one of the bad things about Spotify is you can easily jump between songs and you might skip a few different ones. So I sometimes lament I've lost the art of listening to a whole album through because I've got a very short attention span. However, when you do jump in and go on that journey, as an artist myself, you realise you might have a whole series of artworks in an exhibition, and each of them have a different story, and some might be your highlight ones, but then there's some other ones which sort of came off that. So when you can dive in and listen to that whole album, I think you get a much fuller sense of that artist. And when I do that, I give myself a little pat on the back that I've managed to sort of stay in the flow and keep in that space.
I will attempt it, but sometimes just the first few bits of a song don't grab me, so I will fast forward. Don't hate me. But then I've been known that some songs that I didn't like in the past that I have played again years later, and wow, they become instant favourites. So ever-changing cycle of my music.
I think this came up recently. Beyonce was saying that people don't really do that anymore. They don't download music and listen to a full album or appreciate the album cover, or what you used to get in the 80s, you know, in the 90s, you'd get a whole pull out in the CD or even in the LP, and you could read the story, and each song had a connection or a theme throughout the whole album. Nowadays, it's just like, boom, there's a hit, boom, that's a hit, boom, that's a hit. But if someone did release something like that, I quite like listening to a project, like an album, and the story that it takes you on. So I know a song can take you on a story, but not like an old album used to do.